So, Sammy, I really do hate to say this because, given what I do for a living, but I think fantasy football is ruining the perception of players, quarterbacks, all that kind of stuff. Again, please keep playing fantasy football. It's how I make most of my money. So please keep doing that. But it's amazing to me. And I've heard this from a lot of people. They're like, oh, Caleb Williams looks so bad, but whoa, look how great Jaden Daniels. I'm like, Jaden Daniels, the guy who hasn't thrown for a touchdown pass this year. Jaden Daniels, the guy who gave 8 targets to Terry McLaurin, but got 22 receiving yards. Like, that guy has just been outplaying, and that was against the Giants, by the way. Just been outplaying Caleb somehow. I understand that you think Jaden Daniels has played better because he has more fantasy. You're like, oh, like my fantasy, like you're getting all these fantasy points because he's running around and he's getting all those points, but that does not mean he is playing better than Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams, as I sit here and I watch the games again and again, and I know all the information's out there, the pre-snap checks, all that stuff, you cannot look at what Caleb Williams has done, what he did in the last game, and been like, yeah, okay, like, I feel better about it. It's impossible. But because so many of you play fantasy football and you probably drafted him, and I know some of you drafted him in leagues with me, you're like, oh, he's going to be trade bait later. I'm like, first of all, I'm never doing that. And then second of all, like, no, that's just not the way this works. Like, it's not a fantasy football thing. It's are you going to be a sustainable quarterback thing? Caleb Williams so far has shown me. He has shown me things that needs to be done. But in any event, we got so much to get into. So, Sammy, let's just go ahead and start the show.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. With Adam Ray.
It's Hester trying to work it back to the middle. Gets past the first wave, and here he goes. It's Hester inside the 30. Hester's going to take it all the way for a touchdown. And no flag, 92 yards.
Brought to you by Circa Sports Illinois, the sickest Chicago Bears and fantasy football podcast. Sports entertainment like no other. It's gonna be sick.
It's Wednesday night. You know what that means? It is time for Take It to the Rank. Wednesday is such a massive night. We got AEW coming up. We got the Tape Never Lies Network with Draft Dr. Phil, Shane Marsaw, and of course, am I saying that wrong? Braggs will tell me. But in any event, we also have the challenge. I'm like so far behind in the challenge because I keep watching these games because I just try to get a little bit more info on everything that's going on around the NFL. And speaking of the NFL, the world's largest sports book in Las Vegas is right at your fingertip in Illinois. The Circa Sports app is sports betting the way it should be. Bet anywhere in Illinois, experience high betting limits, better money line splits, more in-game betting, and the best customer service. Download your new bookie today. Visit circasports.com and start betting like a pro from anywhere in Illinois. And if you or anyone you know has a problem with gambling, call 1-800-GAMBLER or text ILGAMB to 833-234. Great show coming up tonight. We're going to take a quick look back at what happened in Houston and start turning our attention to what is going to be going on Sunday on the road. Matt Eberflus revenge game. And to help break us down is from CHGO, our favorite fan, Greg Braggs. Braggs in the stands. He's been out there. He's got the boots on the ground. You know, by the way, I was sitting here. I was thinking about all this stuff. You know what? I'm gonna bring this up with Carm. I don't want to bring it up with you. How are you though?
I'm doing good. You know, obviously Sunday night was a rough one for all of us as Bears fans, but you know, I think that we're starting to get some answers as to why things are looking wrong, which is better than the answer of, I don't know, know? And so, Matt Eberflus and Caleb Williams and DJ Moore spoke to the media today at the press conferences. And then there was some locker room stuff. Nate Davis talked to Nicholas Moriano, our guy that's on the beat for CHGO Bears. So starting to hear enough consistency of answers from across the board that it seems like inside Hallis Hall, they're starting to understand what they need to fix. Now it's just a matter of them executing and finishing it.
We're talking about Shane Waldron. Is that it? It's the offensive coordinator?
No, and that's the thing. It's interesting because I think it's fans' first inclination to, if everything's equal, like, I know sometimes this stuff can roll over. So it's always the new guy gets a pass. Mm-hmm. But if all things are equal and you're not looking at the timeline of who's been here the longest, who's just got here kind of thing, nobody ever likes the offensive coordinator, right? There's like two, we said this last week. And so I think you start with always blaming the offensive coordinator. Then you work your way down to the O-line because it's easier to go after the big uglies than it is your beautiful skill guys. And then if the skill guys, they're next on the pecking order, but they're down the list. And if they've been here long enough and keep screwing around, then you start to draw your ire to them. But that takes like 3 or 4 years for you to build up resentment with the Ferrari and Lamborghinis in the garage. So, everybody's going to immediately go to Shane Waldron. But I just think overall, Adam, what we're seeing with this team is something that at the end of the day, everyone across the board has to have like 5-6 games together where they can start stringing together some cohesion, some continuity, and then you can make a fair evaluation on anybody. Right now, I don't think you can make a fair evaluation on how good or bad of a job Shane Waldron's doing or how good or bad of a job the offensive line is doing. And even obviously Caleb Williams being a rookie and only 8 quarters into his career, I think we're all keeping an open mind to his development. So I'm not the post-game show. I was freaking out. Get rid of this guy, get rid of that guy. Let's fire the offensive line coach. Let's start taking out the center and the right guard. No, I think they need to take a step back and they need to try to execute a game plan this week and then start to build off some consistency. And then you can start to look at how can we upgrade particular positions.
We meet on Monday night on CHGO After Dark with our friend Corey Wooten. Well, your friend Corey Wooten. I'm still not 100% sold that he's team rank or anything. It's fine. We've never met in person, so I can't really
you're a golfer. He's an avid golfer. Trust me, you guys are friends.
I think I told you guys on the show, I had like the worst day, but didn't score horribly the other day. And it was amazing. It actually hit the range afterwards and felt great. Hit the range the other day, feel great, but not feeling is great about the Chicago Bears at the moment. I mean, I'm still optimistic because, and we pointed this out on Monday night, like last year, now week 1 notwithstanding, because he was going against the Bears. So this is going to be par for the course. Jordan Love was struggling. I went back and looked at some of the social media posts from last year about like, the string of luck has run out for the Indianapolis or for the Green Bay Packers. Their quarterback sucks. Looking back, because Aaron Nagler had made fun of, because he had made fun of Caleb Williams, excuse me. And I was like, oh yeah, I go, Brett Favre threw for 73 yards in his first game with the Packers, his first start with the Packers. So let's not, and Brett Favre was also at least a second year guy, when that happened. So let's not, and he's probably not going to go on. Well, I'm not going to get into that, but still, there's a whole like CJ Stroud last year. Even he wasn't like on fire. It's not like the Texans won 15 games last year. We're on fire from week 1. And as a matter of fact, and I think I mentioned this on CHGO, if it wasn't for the complete and utter folding of the Jacksonville Jaguars, the Texans wouldn't have made the playoffs. And then people would have been like, CJ Stroud was fine, but they wouldn't have made him out to be this demigod that they've made him out to be, to the point, like, and before I want to start looking forward to this. What do you make? Like, I was watching the posts of like CJ Stroud. Hey, young man, you're going to have a great career here. You're like, it's kind of like, in a way, I feel like there's been times where when I was first starting out in comedy and I would bomb at a club and I go, hey, you know what? You're going to do real well. You got to I'm like, dude, you're worse than me. Like, why are you talking? You've been doing this for like 4 shows more than me. Like, what gives you the right to come in here like the Godfather? You're not Bill Burr. Like, get out of here. Like, I don't need it from you. Like, listen, you, CJ Stroud, I appreciate the sentiment. Okay. I really do. But you're not Patrick Mahomes. Okay. I don't need you. You're not Jay Cutler. Like, please do not, we don't need this.
Yeah.
I sort of didn't like, I was almost put off by it. Like, don't baby girl me. Like, shut up. Like, go worry about your own team. I understand things will get better. Thank you for the sentiment. I don't want to deal with it. Am I off here, or am I just a lunatic?
No, I get it. And if he was doing it to be condescending, then it's fair for Caleb to say just, hey, I ain't trying to listen to you. But I do actually give CJ Stroud, he talked about it again today with his press conference with the Texans, that he was being genuine. And I tend to lean that he was being genuine. I understand why Caleb didn't want to hear it in the moment. But what he was saying was right, where he was like, hey man, you don't want to take too many hits. Like, and then he pulled him back in. He's like, listen, man, you got to protect yourself a little bit. And that's where I just think Bears fans, I see some people in the chat like, I don't want to hear it. The offensive line's terrible. Look, guys, like what CJ Stroud said to him is correct. Caleb will, you want to blame Shane Waldron, for Caleb Williams almost getting his head knocked off. You want to blame the offensive line for almost getting his head knocked off, go right ahead. But I'm here to tell you that Caleb Williams holds just as much responsibility to making sure that he's protecting himself. And that Matt Eberflus talked about it today. He said it even after the post-game presser, but then he said it again today. Caleb Williams also talked about it today, where they're talking about communication at the line of scrimmage. They're talking about the communication between the quarterback and the center, identifying what's in front of them at the line of scrimmage, identifying how many players are in the box, identifying who the hot read is. DJ Moore talked about that. And so that's why everything looks off, and, Tevin Jenkins has not looked good here these first 2 weeks, but that to me is a tell, because we know Tevin Jenkins is a talented offensive lineman. And now all of a sudden he looks lost as well. That, I think, speaks volumes to why everything looks a mess. And that is why Caleb Williams it's going to take time for him to understand what he's seeing in front of him. And that is why the coaching staff, it is incumbent on them to put him in a position where he can succeed, where the offense can succeed, where they can protect the quarterback against himself. And so, it's going to be a long learning curve, but that's why CJ Stroud said that to him. Like, hey man, you gotta be careful with the protections that you're calling, because you almost got killed tonight. And that's a real concern. He could have been hurt last Sunday night and he'd be out for how many weeks? And then what are you doing with his development? So what good is developing a quarterback if he's not available because he's injured? They got to do a good job here this Sunday to try to tighten things up, maybe even dial some things back, and just try to do a little more meat and potatoes before they get to the flashy, high octane offense that we're all dreaming about. Yeah.
And it's something, again, that we talked about on Monday. And by the way, I did text CJ's uncle that very sentiment, not maybe word for word, but I was like, hey, make sure our guy, because I'm a big CJ guy, but in any event, I'm sure he was being sincere. I don't doubt that. But at the same time, like you could have texted him. It's a little showy. It's kind of like when I go onto your show and I make fun of you for doing the reads. Yes. I'm like, hey, you're not doing the reads correctly. That is me being a showman and trying to show you up, because I'm jealous of your talent. And so I don't know, maybe there's a little, no, I'm just kidding. But
and I'll be taking notes when you do your ad read here in a minute. So,
oh, please don't, because I'm the worst at it. But in any event, we talked about this on Monday night, and we were saying, like, how do we simplify this? Now, number one, I think we both tweeted out something very similar. Like, there's no need to go out there and change the offensive line. It's not like Ryan Bates is healthy. We're not going to now just trying to screw around with the continuity seems like the wrong idea with the offensive line. So when Matt Eberflus says we're keeping the offensive line, we're not making any changes, that's fine, correct?
Yeah, no, I agree with that. As much as we're all very irritated with Nate Davis, and I certainly am, and if I was the head coach, I probably would have cut him at training camp just to set the precedent of, you want to talk about continuity and chemistry. Well, he's hurting that because of the way he conducted himself in the offseason, preseason, and training camp by not being there next to his guys in the dog days of the summer, practicing up against each other. So that's part of some of the communication issues that you're seeing right now. But at the end of the day, now that we're here, now that Ryan Bates is on IR, you got to roll with who you got and try to build up some chemistry along the offensive line and the quarterback and get them, with some positive momentum. So I have no issue with that whatsoever. And I just, like I said, I just think it's so easy to blame the offensive line. Yes, Darnell Wright got turned out. Matt Eberflus talked about that today on that final play. Daniil Hunter lays him out. Darnell Wright certainly got turned out there. But then you look at some of the other sacks, the majority of the other sacks, and try to understand. And at the end of the day, unless you're in that room and you know the real core of what happened and whose responsibility is what, you're just guessing by saying that's Shane Waldron's fault. That's Cole Kmet's fault. That's Coleman Shelton's fault. That one's Caleb Williams' fault. You don't know. Even the smartest football analysts or former players or whoever's looking at the tape, they don't know. That's the bottom line. And so we're all kind of guessing. But at the end of the day, it does feel like the guys inside that locker room do understand what needs to be fixed. And let's just hope they can do that.
Yeah. Throwing your boy Cole Kmet under the bus like that, though. Wow, that was tough. No,
Cole's
I'm
my
kidding.
guy. Cole's my guy. I saw him on Tuesday, and we had a fun conversation. And I said to him, I was like, "Well, Cole, I was gonna come in here and show you how to block Will Anderson," and he gave me a nice shove. I don't know, hey, I can show him a thing or two.
Hey, listen, it is what it is. Like, listen, I have eyes. Like, listen, I might not be able to write a movie, but I can tell you what was wrong with Star Wars Episode 9. So there you go. And the thing with the offensive line too is like sometimes you just have to go with what you have, whether you like it or not. You could have argued that Motley Crue was a better band musicianally wise with John Corabi, but you make your money with Vince Neil, and sometimes you just got to roll with that, whether it makes you happy or not. One thing that we did talk about on Monday, which I think that still is in play here with everybody, continuing, like, let's keep the continuity on the offensive line, let them work together, try to figure this out. A little bit more of a conservative approach. You alluded to it a moment ago. Like, okay, like maybe we'll run some 12 personnel. Perhaps we don't need to put 3 wide receiver sets out there. We could probably do something a little bit different, try to run downhill and try to really take advantage of a Colts team. And I spent last night watching it in full for the first time, the Packers and the Colts. And I'm like, let's run on this team. Like this, watching that game film, I'm like, let's do this. And obviously the Colts are going to try to fix what happened last week in Green Bay. But to me, it behooves them to go out there and kind of bring it in a little bit. And then just let's run downhill and try to run it down the throats of the Indianapolis Colts.
Yeah, I mean, to me, this Sunday is just what the doctor ordered for the Chicago Bears. They have an opportunity against the team that has the worst rushing defense statistically in the NFL. But the only way the Bears are going to be able to take advantage of that is by making adjustments to the offense they've been trying to run and then play to the weakness of the Indianapolis Colts. So to your point, bring in Mercedes Lewis, bring in 2 tight end sets. If Kari Blasingame can be healthy by Sunday, you bring that fullback back on the active roster. Get under center, run downhill. Those are all kind of cliche things that you hear at times, but there's a reason it's a cliche. And it's because it's worked for 80 years in the National Football League. So do those things. Don't try to reinvent the wheel this week and just take what the defense is giving you. And for Indianapolis, they're giving you a lot of yards on the ground. And for the Bears, that's what they need right now because their passing offense is still a work in progress and their run game is also still a work in progress. So get one of those things right. The run game, I think, has an opportunity to get right this week if the proper adjustments are made.
Do you have confidence in them making the adjustments? Because I'll be honest with you, I'm very impressed with the defense in both games against the Titans and the Texans. Will Levis got a little bit of run, got a ball to Chigakonkwo. for a touchdown, moved a little bit, but then absolutely shut out in the second half. And you're like, okay, well, you can say what you want about Will Levis, but they did the same thing to CJ Stroud. And they turned that Texans team, and people are like, well, they got conservative. I'm like, well, they're conservative because they respect you. If DeMeco Ryans does not respect the Bears defense, he's going to keep going for it. So like there is something to be said about that. So I've appreciated what they've been able to do defensive wise, and I feel like they'll have a game plan for Anthony Richardson. Do you believe that the offense can go out there and make the necessary adjustments with this team to try to get back on the right track, or at least moving the ball?
Well, right. I mean, just as much as the Bears are looking at this game like, hey, this is our chance for some good medicine and a get right opportunity. Well, you think the Colts aren't thinking the same thing? They're like, hey, this offense is 30th in the NFL. This is our chance as a defense who's played pitiful to get right. And you're right. They're going to look at that Texans tape and they're going to see that they blitzed over 40% of the snaps for the entire game and see how the Bears didn't have an answer for it for 4 quarters. They're going to see that the Texans blitzed and played man coverage on 73% of the Bears' third down dropbacks per Next Gen Stats. They are going to see that and say, okay, the Bears didn't have an answer for that for the entirety of the game. We are also going to test the Chicago Bears for that. So that is why you've got to try to do things to counteract what you know is coming. What they're going to put all the players in the box and dare Caleb Williams to beat them over the top. They're going to, and anytime he drops back, they're going to send pressure. So you've got to do different things. Pre-snap motion, under center, play action, roll out, run the ball. Like run the ball even if the front in front of you is trying to tell you not to run. You got to run the ball. So do I think that they're going to be able to make those adjustments? Am I confident in it? One of the biggest things that Caleb Williams talked about today, he was very honest with some of the things that he needs to get better at, is that it's not just people just talk about what Caleb Williams needs to get better at with identifying coverages as a passer, but he also is very responsible for the run game and walking up to the line of scrimmage, knowing you're about to run the ball and identifying what you're going to call and what you're going to check into, whether you run it right, left, whether you're going to run it outside or inside. That's also the quarterback and the center's responsibility to decipher in the 30 seconds as the play clock is dwindling down. So he talked about that today, that's something that he's working on and learning how to identify which way to go, the personnel that's on the field, the defense he's looking at. There's a lot of different variables on understanding what the right call is. So while I think the coaching staff can put him in a position to make it as easy as he can for him, ultimately the Colts are going to give him looks that challenge Caleb Williams to be able to make the proper check at the line of scrimmage. And that I cannot answer you, Adam. Is he ready to do that this Sunday? I don't know, but that's why the coaches have to do a hell of a job creating a game plan that's as simple for him to execute.
Yeah, it's one of those things that's very important to the development of a quarterback, but it's not something that goes on the back of somebody's trading card. And by the way, speaking of trading cards, at Windy City Sports Cards, they specialize in buying and selling all things related to Chicago sports. Whether you are a diehard fan of the Bears, Bulls, Cubs, White Sox, Blackhawks, or Sky, they have got you covered with an extensive selection of sports memorabilia and collectibles. In addition to their Chicago-focused items, they also offer a vast collection of sports trading cards and memorabilia from your favorite teams and players. And we talked at great length with our friends over at Windy City Sports Cards over the weekend. They were on the Friday show and had the sage advice not to get rid of those Shohei Ohtani cards, as my daughter wanted to put them all in the trash. And I'm like, I get it. We're not huge fans of them right now, but we're not getting rid of those cards. And we didn't even spend a lot of money because people forget, and this is a quick aside, Ohtani for his first 3 years in Anaheim, people thought he was a bust. And then all of a sudden, he became the biggest thing in all of sports, $750 million. And that to me is what reminds me, like this, it's so amazing, or it's so like amazing. I don't know the word I'm searching for, but it's like, yeah, like people forget that. Like it's so hard unless you were truly living in the moment of like we had 3 years where people were like, oh, Otani's a bust. 3 years of Dodger fans being like, I'm so glad we never signed this guy. We dodged that one. There's a thing. I've bookmarked tweets of this whole thing. And now all of us, you couldn't even fathom that. And that is my sincerest hope with Caleb Williams, that we can get to that kind of thing, that we can get to that spot. And again, it comes down to this stretch of games. Like, it really is one of those things where you got the Colts, Matt Eberflus revenge game, should be a win. I'm sorry. I know that I pick us to win every week. Should be a win. The Rams, the Panthers, like, these are 3 winnable games. And it's so easy to flip the narrative because, these are definitely winnable games. I think that 2-1 at worst, 3-0 should be the expectation. What is your expectation for the next couple of weeks?
Yeah, I mean, the next 4 opponents the Bears play, all the way into London when they take on the Jaguars, the next 4 opponents are 0-8 on the season right now.
Yeah.
The next 3 opponents are the 3 worst rushing defenses in football. So to your point, get right in terms of the offense becoming this high octane showtime, throw it all over the yard offense. No, that's not the get right, but the get right of stay over 500, stack some wins, build some momentum, build some confidence, build a margin of error for your team. Give Caleb Williams an opportunity to get 5-6 games under his belt where he sees different coverages, different looks, has 5-6 games of film to look at. Because then when you get back from London, you get a bye week. And then you get 2 weeks to reset. You get 2 weeks to heal up. You get 2 weeks to look at everything that you've done right, everything you've done wrong, the things you can lean on in a pinch. And so this is a real opportunity for them. And the ultimate question that all Bears fans want to know is this going to work out? Is Caleb Williams the guy? Or is this just going to be the next of a million failures the Bears have had in the last 30 years? And I'm here to tell you that Caleb Williams will eventually figure it out. Yeah. But it is a matter of when. Will it be in 2 weeks? Will it be in 4 weeks? Will it be in 8 weeks? Will it be all the way until next year? I can't answer that. Only Caleb Williams and how fast he can pick all this up can. But I have all the confidence in the world that he will, because his work ethic and his desire to be great and his poise that he's shown here these last 2 weeks shows me that he has the mental fortitude to handle the failures and learn from his mistakes and get better as it goes. As ugly as it was on Sunday night, and it was, you can make the argument that it was better than week 1. And that might be silly for some fans to hear.
I wholeheartedly agree.
But it actually is the truth. And Matt Eberflus said that today. And so I agree with that. And I think they have an opportunity to get incrementally better every week here for the next 4 weeks. And then they maybe can get to the bye week with a nice winning record.
Yeah, I keep thinking about that because I know when we were doing our preseason predictions, we were talking about how well Jacksonville plays over in London. They have all the experience doing that, but that team is starting to struggle a little bit. And then I keep thinking too, like, oh, we're going to Tottenham Stadium. My team actually won in Tottenham Stadium over the weekend. But in any event, I say
I'll also say in 2019, and I'm sure we'll have more time to talk about this in the next few weeks, but in 2019, when the Bears went to Tottenham, it was such a great experience. I was able to go. I was lucky enough to be able to go. And the thing that stood out was the Bears fans who travel relentlessly. They traveled well to the Texans game. They're going to completely take over the Colts game. They're going to travel well. So as much as it is a home environment for the Jaguars and they're able to go to those games and call it kind of a home field advantage for them, I am willing to bet there will be more Bears fans at that game in London. So we're 100%. Still a ways away from that. But when they played the Raiders in 2019, that was a raucous crowd. And anybody that lives across the pond that goes to those games just to take in a football game said that was one of the craziest environment games that they had seen thus far in this London series of NFL games that they've been seeing the last few years.
Yeah, and you got to remember too, when you're playing a game in England, like it's just as easy for somebody in Germany or Switzerland to get over to that game as like somebody driving from or flying from California to Chicago. Let me ask you a question. I know this has nothing to do with the game that's coming up. Obviously, we're going to take over the stadium in Indianapolis. It was loud in Indiana. It was loud, in Houston.
Yep.
Is there ever time, like I'm trying, and maybe I'm biased by this, but you go to more Bears games in Chicago than I do. Has there ever been a fan base that's just taken over our stadium? Because like I look at some of these, even good teams, like it happens to Dallas, like not good team, but like Dallas has this problem. San Francisco sometimes has this problem too. Like you wouldn't expect it. This team, does anybody come over to Chicago and you're like, God, there's a lot of fans of this team here?
Yeah, the Steelers fans travel like crazy. Steelers fans travel like crazy. Eagles fans travel like crazy. If you go to Wrigley and there's a Cardinals game, at least 10, 15 years ago, maybe not as much these days, but Cardinals fans certainly travel well. A lot of Cardinals fans in Illinois, Southern Illinois, and things of that nature. So there are times, but never to the extent in a way of Bears, in my experience, and I've gone to a lot of road games for all the teams I root for here in Chicago. Gone to a lot of games in Chicago itself. There has been multiple times I've gone on the road to games, and the way Chicago Bears fans take over a stadium is hilarious. It's the look on the other fan base's face as it's happening, and the look on the players' faces of the home team as they're looking around like, what is going on here? It always takes them by surprise because it is so overwhelming. And Sunday, I think, is going to be one of those moments where you're going to hear Colts fans going, like, looking side to side, like, I can't believe this is happening. And, so Bears fans always seem to make an impact in that way, Chicago fans in general. So have no doubt that that's what's going to happen in Indianapolis.
And obviously, most of my experience comes out here in California with the Chargers and the Rams, where it's not very difficult, and it's actually par for the course with them to have some more opposing fans in the stands. But even at that point, like even last year for the San Diego or the Chargers game, there was like, for the Bears not playing very well, you're like, God, there's so many Bear fans here. The Rams game the previous year was unbelievable. We are still confident. It was Justin Fields for Justin Fields' first game, right? That's where he opened.
In Cleveland.
Yeah. So it's like, it was pretty extreme. So it's fun. It should be a good atmosphere. But let's take some fan questions or comments. Want to do that. We've been kind of ignoring them over the last couple of weeks, and I don't want to feel them left behind. Same O-line coach for like 5 years. When have the Bears had a good offensive line? I wonder too, and I know one of the local radio guys out there was talking about this theory that he had about like, hey, Ryan Poles and Ian Cunningham are they're not drafting road graders or anything like that. Do you think there's a lot of truth to that by any chance or anything of that nature?
I mean, I think Darnell Wright can be a road grader. I think Tevin Jenkins can be a road grader. I think the other guys aren't necessarily road graders by definition. I think Braxton Jones has played fine here these first 2 weeks. But I wouldn't define him as a road grader necessarily. And then obviously Coleman Shelton and Nate Davis getting walked back 10 steps. I don't think we're calling them road graders at this point. I know a lot of people are being hard on the offensive line coach. I mean, even Lance Briggs said, Lance Briggs and Alex Brown have joined the CHGO Bears team. And on their Briggs and Brown show, Lance said, I would fire the offensive line coach. He said that straight up Sunday night, after the game was over. And so it's interesting because the last couple of years, the Bears have been one of the better rushing teams in the NFL. Obviously, they've had their problems in pass protection.
Right.
But a lot of the conversation has been like, is it the offensive line or is it the fact that Justin Fields holds on to the ball too long, or is it the play caller and Luke Getsy? And I think it's kind of funny how Bears fans just can't seem to grasp this, from Nagy to Getsy to, all the different play callers we've had to go through and different quarterbacks that had their flaws. It's everything. It's never just one thing. It's never just the quarterback. It's never just the O-line. It's never just the play caller. it's normally a collection of the three, but everybody always wants it just to be one thing because then all they got to do is fix one thing. And so Chris Morgan, rolls over into this coaching staff. He becomes the run game coordinator. They have had success running the football, and now all of a sudden they look lost trying to run the football. And I think the tell is that Tevin Jenkins, who is a very solid to very good offensive lineman when he's healthy, looking as bad as he has the first 2 weeks, shows me that it's about the chemistry and the execution and less about the talent on the field. Because when they know what they're doing, Tevin Jenkins will lay a dude out. Tevin Jenkins will drive a dude 10 yards back and put him in the turf. That's a road grader. And I think Darnell Wright's the same kind of guy. I understand he missed a block, a big one too at that. And Eberflus straight called him out in the press conference about it today. But at the same time, I think Darnell Wright is the type of guy, as Alex Brown said, move a guy beyond their will. Can you move a guy beyond their will? And I think those two guys specifically are certainly guys that can do that.
Do you also think too, I mean, they've been playing some pretty good defensive lines over the last 2 weeks. When you talk about Darnell Wright's being lit up by Danielle Hunter or Will Anderson or something, like these are good players. It's not like, hey, journeyman defensive end rolls right through them. I mean, I was watching, who are the Raiders playing? And Max Crosby just makes people look foolish, like just ridiculous. Like they've never played football before.
Right.
Sometimes there's just, you're up against good players.
Well, Danielle Hunter gave the Bears fits last year as a Minnesota Viking, and then he once again gave, the Bears fits here as a Houston Texan. But ultimately, I just don't want to, because we did this from week 1 to week 2. Well, the Texans don't have D tackles like, the Titans do. So we'll be able to run up the middle. Well, that ended up not being the case. And now this week we're like, well, the defensive line of the Texans is, the Colts defensive line isn't as good. At the end of the day, I don't care what the names are on the Colts defensive line. I know DeForest Buckner is going to be out, but if the Bears can't fix the problems they're having on how they're being attacked, I don't really care who it is and what defense it is. They're going to have issues blocking it because they're just going to get blitzkrieged.
Yeah, but I mean, like, there is something to be said, though. Like, if they can't get it done against the Colts, then I think we could have cause for concern.
Yes. Yeah, I think it's a fair thing to say. I mean, cause for concern for what our highest expectations were for this year. Cause for concern that they're never going to figure it out? No, I don't think that's the case. So, yeah, I'm holding my breath. And if they don't win on Sunday, I'm going to bury my head in the largest Taco Bell bag you've ever seen in your entire life. But I do think that they'll win the game.
I gotta get you to Del Taco when you come out to when you get out to Arizona this year. All right, Sammy, what else do we got here? Brewhaw 7, has there been any logical reason given for Rojo and Mercedes Lewis having no playing time and only one snap for Lewis? They are great in pass pro. I mean, that's one of the questions I would have as well. Like, I'm with you. We don't want to rearrange the deck chairs on the Titanic. That's right. I watch. I see you working. That's a reasonable question, I think. Like, why are these guys not in the game? Like we saw, like, and there's a lot of great content creators out there. Forgive me for not calling out this specific individual who was making this, but like, hey, Travis Homer missed a block, like missed a chip, and then Caleb gets blown up. Like, does he miss that? Like, I don't know. I would love to find out because I feel like these are guys who should be in the game.
Yeah, I mean, reasonable reason of why Roshan is not in the game. Like, he was active last week, but the word is that he's hurt. He was hurt in training camp leading up to the season. Then he was inactive week 1. So I guess we don't know for certainty. I know the injury report came out earlier, and I don't believe that he was on it. If I do my quick check here, I don't believe he was on it, and no, he wasn't. So, to me, yeah, I would implement Roshan Johnson, a guy that can put his head down. At the end of the day, I don't really care if you want to do Khalil Herbert, Roshan Johnson, Travis Homer, DeAndre Swift, just run the damn ball.
Exactly.
So Travis Homer put his helmet down week 1 and ran a dude over up the middle. So they just need to figure out how they can run the ball with some success. and I don't really care who the running back is, just find me 5 yards on first down. Because the issue they're running into is not only are they having trouble on third down, as I said, 73% blitzed on third down dropbacks, that it's also because it's 3rd and 9 and 3rd and 12. Get this guy in 3rd and manageable where the defense has to question whether you're running or passing. And then that might also help, when you do decide to drop back and try to throw it, so, I think that's part of it is trying to get to 3rd and manageable.
Yeah, that's the big thing, and not giving up big plays. And it's also, again, it's boring football, but you don't have to pass it on 2nd down because it feels like that has been where a lot of issues happen. Like something goes awry, sack happens, maybe lose a yard or two. It's like, God, that 2nd down play is so crucial, and you got to get positive yards, and you got to cut that thing down to 3rd and 5 or less. And we just haven't seen enough of that. But I feel that, but then because I'm an idiot, I still feel like, we're getting there. We're getting there because like Caleb's starting to pick up some things with his legs, starting to do not to the extent of like Justin Fields or anything like that, but still making some plays with his legs. All right, so we have another question though, or comment. Eric, what's up? I don't know. I might be wrong. I see huge difference in Caleb over the prior quarterbacks. I see a guy processing and making decisions while firing the ball, even when he's under fire and not on the same page as the wide receivers. Would you agree with that? Do you think that the process and all that stuff is a little bit different from the other guys we've seen?
Yeah, I definitely see a difference. I think his time to throw, the ball coming out of his hands is much faster than the previous quarterback. I think he was the 6th highest ranked time to throw guy. You're throwing, that's because you're throwing it quick. Well, as we learned last year, they did a lot of quick passing side to side game, and the ball still wasn't coming out fast enough, and that's the difference. That split second from 2.5 seconds to 3 seconds is all the difference in the world between a play working and a play not working. And so, I see him getting the ball out quickly. I see him hitting guys in stride. I see him able to process and make the right read. His accuracy, if you want to talk about like the biggest thing you can criticize him in here these first 2 weeks, his accuracy has been very poor. I don't think he's thrown one accurate ball downfield yet. And you can chalk that up to being uncomfortable and, having so much to learn and him being overloaded with, so much to try to process. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. He hasn't been accurate down the field. And we saw this at camp where there were times where he'd overthrow or underthrow, but then we also saw a lot of balls that were dots. How many times have you seen him throw a dot so far? Not many, maybe one, honestly. So, that to me is, if you want to talk about what he needs to get better at, it's obviously diagnosing what he's seeing in front of him and sharpening up his accuracy. But I think with the more he gets comfortable, the more he'll be able to do that. And I agree with Eric that the rest of it, you see a guy that can play quarterback. His poise has been great, even through all this. He's staying in the pocket. He understands how to climb in the pocket. So, once they create a healthy pocket for him, I think he's going to be able to do some damage.
Yeah, I'm not even concerned at all about his decision-making process or his pre-snaps or anything like that. As a matter of fact, I'm sleeping well when it comes to that. In fact, it's kind of like I'm sleeping with a Mantis sleep mask, the only mask designed and optimized for the deepest possible sleep in any environment, 100% blackouts for deeper sleep, infinitely adjustable for your personalized fit, absolute comfort. Visit mantasleep.com. Use the code SICKBEARS for 10% off. And Braggs, as you go on the road, you got to get one of these sleep masks. You'll be like, especially when you go to London, it's a different environment over there. You need to be ready to go and ready to face all the difficulties with challenges. Hey, are there any more questions there, Sammy? Before we, Jason, what's going on? I know we're Bears fans, but I haven't been hearing anything about how well Fields is playing. I still think the Bears would have been better off with Fields plus draft picks to address the offensive line. I'm going to grab this one first. And I'm rooting for Justin Fields, and I'm in, and I'm happy for my Steelers fans. But it's the same thing that I was talking about to open the show with Jaden Daniels. It's like the Steelers are winning. They're 2-0, but it's like, have you not, like, the Steelers are like, okay, if you guys are going to score 9 points, we're going to score 13.
Right.
And they just do enough, and which is great. And I hope Justin does well. And I hope he is the starter for the entirety of the season. Number one, because I'm a fan of his. Number two, we'll get a 4th round pick, so it won't look as terrible. But it's not, we did not give up the next Patrick Mahomes. We have not given up the next Josh Allen. Like, Justin's doing what Justin's doing. And the only thing that I can kind of say is that their offensive line play, I think they have more cohesion with their offense, or not even, because like Arthur Smith's a new play caller, but I think they're doing a better job of catering the game to his strengths that maybe the Bears could improve upon a little bit.
Well, I mean, he's in his 4th year, so the issues that the Bears are having, is just different than whatever issues we had with Justin. The issue right now is that it's a first-year offense and a first-year quarterback trying to recognize what he's seeing at the line of scrimmage. Justin has been in the league long enough now where he can recognize defenses. He knows how defenses want to play him.
Yeah.
Right? Caleb's now learning how defenses want to play him, and also learning the playbook that he's trying to execute, learning what they're disguising. It's just two totally different journeys that these quarterbacks are on, and everybody wants to just compare them side by side. It's not the case. And people think when we start talking about Justin, I'm not hating on Justin. I'm rooting for the dude. As long as he stays in the AFC, I'll root for him the rest of his career. He comes over to the NFC, then I'll start hating on him again. But I'm not gonna, I'm rooting for him in Pittsburgh. So he's done good so far. They're 2-0. It's not like some high octane offense. He's not throwing for 400 yards. He's doing what we saw him do many a times here in Chicago when things look right. So good for him. Mike Tomlin always knows how to get the best out of his players. So doesn't surprise me whatsoever that they're already 2-0. Mike Tomlin wins 8 or more games every year of his coaching tenure. He's not a below average coach. So, none of that I think pertains to Caleb. And I know somebody in the chat earlier was like, well, how is this, Justin didn't get these excuses that Caleb's getting. Like, stop it. And there it was, Eric Martin. Everyone has excuses for Caleb, but none for Justin. He went through the same thing for 3 years. Justin,
that's all he did was talk about this stuff.
We gave him the benefit of the doubt every step of the way, starting with the rebuild, starting with the lack of receivers.
Hey.
With Dante Pettis, Equinemius St. Brown, and then you move on to the Sam Mustipher era and Lucas Patrick and Luke Getsy. We constantly said this, that, and the other was part of the problem. So, I don't like it, but once you came to last year and rubber had to meet the road on, should we keep him or should we draft this young player? Then you have to you started to have tough conversations of who he is, who you think he's going to be versus the other guy, and who you think project that he can be. And then people interpreted that as hating. But no, Justin Fields got plenty of the benefit of the doubt, plenty of excuses. And I think both quarterbacks have an opportunity to have success in this league, but they're in 2 totally different trajectories.
Man, it's wild because we actually did give Justin the benefit of the doubt, did trade for more picks with the Bryce Young deal. Like, that's exactly what we did. We traded for a bunch of picks, got a receiver and a tackle. Like, that's exactly what we did. And it didn't work out for Justin. Like, he who knows? Like, if he would have won that Green Bay game or closed out a couple of the games that we lost earlier in the season, then perhaps that would have been a different conversation. Or if Carolina hadn't finished with the first overall pick and we're deciding whether between, Drake, like the Drake Mayfair having the 3rd quarterback selection would have been a deal breaker for me. And even then I was like, I remember being on the fence, like, I'm sort of with Justin. Like I can see that too, but I don't think that we never gave him the benefit of the doubt. We certainly did. We gave him some time to do it. And at some point, as you put it, you got to make a decision on this. You just have to.
Well, and if anything, Caleb's got less excuses as a rookie quarterback in his first 8 quarters of his career. Like, Justin had 3 years of all these different things variables and hurdles that he had to overcome that we all acknowledge. Caleb's walking into what was predominantly called by me and many others that the best situation, the most unique situation a rookie quarterback has ever walked into. So really, he doesn't have the excuse of lack of talent around him or a rebuild team that he's on. The only excuse he can really lean on is his lack of experience. And even still, Bears fans are always going to keep him open mind. And I think the majority of them are giving him the benefit of the doubt that there is going to be a learning curve. So, that's the only thing he can lean on. Everything else, it's all on him to make this work because of the talent and the team that he has around him.
Yeah. Our guy, Aaron Nagler, was even like, and I responded to him and he's like, oh, I thought the Bears, they won the offseason again, best situation. And I'm like, hey, bro, like same record as the Packers. Okay. Right. So like, I understand where you're coming from, but it's like, it's way too early for this.
He's having such issues. Caleb's having all these issues trying to, catch up to the NFL speed of the game. And they still almost beat the Houston Texans on the road. They had the ball with 1:45 left and got to midfield with a chance to win the game. And Caleb Williams had been sacked 7 times. It was a total carbon copy of the Browns game. With Justin Fields, the Browns blew the doors off the Bears that day. Yeah. But it was the same thing with this game, although the talent on the Bears, to Aaron Nagler's point, I thought this was the best situation. Yeah, they still almost won the game, as pitiful as the offense looked. That's a pretty good situation for a rookie quarterback to walk into.
I hate to say this too, because when he hits that play to Rome, and I'm like, oh my God, they're going to do this. And I was just like, I'm going to be, and I got so far ahead of myself being like, I'm going to be such a menace. Like people are going to be so like, I might get fired from the NFL Network because I'm going to be such a problem for people, because I was like, if they win this game, like it's over for every other, like I will be so like already, like I'm terrible. I'm insufferable as it is. And our team sucked for years. Like that would have been the moment of like, oh my God, like I would have been I would have been living on Twitter Spaces for 24 hours, just coming at people.
Lucas in the chat says, dude, come on. You really thought the Bears were going to go down the field?
Put Lucas's comment up.
Yeah. To me, no, I didn't think they were going to go down and score. But as they got to midfield, Caleb scrambles, then they hit another big play to the middle of the field. And now I'm sitting here going, wow, like you said, could this, like, there's no way they're going to do this. Now, they give up a sack, then they end the game, pitifully. But I do wish that they would have strung a couple more passes. And even if they had lost, but got into the red zone and had like 3 or 4 opportunities to score, and that's how they
like the Atlanta game a couple of years ago.
I'd have been fine with that. But, to lose at completely stall out in the middle of the field, and everything that went wrong in that game kind of reared its ugly head once again. That was like, oh yeah, never mind. They're not getting down there. So no, I didn't think they were going to.
It
doesn't mean I wasn't glued to the TV thinking, wow, could it happen?
I feel bad for people who don't feel that way, that sit there and be like, nope, it's not going to. I'm like, oh my God. I can go to a baseball game and I don't even know what happened with the Angels today. I know they went to extras with the White Sox, but I'll go to baseball games and we'll be down 5-1. And you'll be like, oh, first guy gets on in the 9th inning. You're like, oh my God, it's going to happen. Like I feel bad for, not you in particular, but I feel bad for people who don't have that sense of wonderment and the ability to just see the best possibility in the world. Like I'm bummed out for you if you've been so beaten down by life and sports and everything that you just can't take a moment to think, oh, maybe we can do this. Is it always going to happen? No. I wasn't despondent when it didn't happen. And I was just like, oh, that was so like, that would have been fun. Like I choose to believe, and that's just going to be who I am. And I don't. So I feel bad for you if you don't believe. By the way, the Angels did win 4-3 in the 13th, but I legitimately feel bad for anybody who's like, did you really think? I'm like, yeah, sort of. I did. I got caught up in the moment. And that's what I'm going to do.
Well, it goes to show you, because Lucas brings up the chat. Sorry, man. We were scarred Bears fans that know this team will do as opposed to what we want them to do. But it kind of shows age. It shows his age a little bit, though, too, because The younger Bears fans, they only know failure, I feel
That's
like.
true.
Like me and you have lived through Bears teams that win those crazy games that they had no business winning. And so I'd love to be able to get back. And they did that week 1, right? They did that week 1 where they won a game that they had no business winning. And if Kyler Gordon holds on to that and he jumps the route, if he just catches it clean and goes pick 6, all of a sudden the Bears have a lead in a game they had absolutely no business winning. So, I mean, I think the Bears are starting to get back to that place where, you know, they have an opportunity to pull off crazy upsets.
Yeah, it goes back to anybody who lived through the Mike Brown era. But listen, the bell is going. I gotta get to class. No, I gotta get to class at Chapman University to go teach the students. I leave it. I always leave the phone over there and then I forget. But in any event, thanks so much to everybody who's been here. We appreciate you being here. Oh, stop it. Slickest, sickest live read endorsement putt. Stop it. It is nothing like that.
I love this. I love this alarm to end the show. This is like it's like a nursery. It's like a little kid's nursery to end the show, which fits for having me on.
There it is. Want to thank everybody for joining us here tonight. It was a lot of fun. Braggs, I'm sure you have the Bears winning this week.
I do.
The sick picks will be out over the weekend. We'll go over that in great detail. So for Braggs, I'm Rank. Keep the faith. Lucas, we got this. I want your life to be one of wonderment and joy, and it'll be there someday. Don't stop believing. And bear down, and Sammy, go ahead and play us out.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Adam Rank on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. Brought to you by Circa Sports Illinois.